Dude, Merrick, I was seriously responding to your chats. I was responding to Alfred's chats. I can't believe that's like 25 minutes. I was live this entire time, or I hit live in OBS, and I didn't see it didn't go live in YouTube because you have to hit something different in YouTube. So can you guys hear me now? So here's what it is. The members only streams are a beta thing in YouTube. I was wondering why you didn't respond to me when I was I was wondering why you didn't respond to me when I told you well, when I was answering your chats. Okay, so wow, that's crazy. That is crazy. Okay. So we're actually near the end of the freaking Water Ryu video. I'm doing the very, very end of it right now, and I just saw your chat. So let me give you a recap. I'll actually, since I recorded this, maybe I'll put the raw data file in supporters chat so you can see this part as well. While watching Netflix. Nice, bro. Okay, so to answer your question about the bot, well, okay, first of all, so this is the first time, obviously, I've done a members-only chat, and what I learned is that it's a beta feature in YouTube, so I learned two things. The first one is I can't activate the bot in it because the bot is not actually a channel member. It's a different account that I created, and it can't connect into the chat because it's listed as members-only. Second thing is, I forgot. What the hell was the second thing? I guess there is no second thing. Oh, yeah, the second thing is as far as not going live. So I went live the way I normally do. And apparently on a members only stream, you have to go live in two different places. And so until you said that, I was like thinking I was live the whole time and screwing up. And you guys were getting to watch all my screw ups the whole time. Anyway, for those of you who jumped in, well, I was going to say jumped in late. You all jumped in on time. But since you didn't hear the preamble, basically, I've got a few videos that I've prepped and have set to go, and so I'm going to be recording at least 2, hopefully 3 videos tonight if there's enough time. And so we're actually just finishing the end of this first one. Like I said, I might just drop the raw file into supporter chat so you guys can see it. And then you'll see the other 2. And the basic idea here, and this may wind up being incredibly lame, I have no idea. But the basic idea is just so you guys can see my process, and also you can see my outtakes and see how much I screw up and and restart and stuff like that. These videos I've done a little bit more prep for, so it won't be as bad as maybe one that I'm doing on the fly. But still, I've had quite a few little restarts and screw ups in this video. So anyway, hopefully it'll be interesting. If it sucks, then I won't do it again. If it's interesting, maybe we'll do it a few more times. But that was the basic idea, and then I made it supporters only just because I'm not going to be watching chat nearly as much as I normally do, mostly when I take breaks as I like reset for the next, I don't want to call it a scene, but fight or whatever. I'll catch up with you guys in chat, but during the actual recording, I won't be watching chat. So with that said, now I have to remember where the hell I was in this video. Okay, yes, I do remember where I was in this video now. Clip, there you go. A clip is an effective word right there. Clip will work. I can't believe, like, I thought I was live for 25 minutes. I had pants on for the last 25 minutes, guys. Unnecessary. No, I'm just playing. Okay, so we did outspeed the Vigor, which I wasn't highly confident about. Now, if you look at the attack bars, this is where it gets interesting. Basically, the Vigor's at full attack bar, so are the Pungbake, the Galleon, and the Water Ryu, but I will tell you there's about a 20-25 speed gap between the Water Ryu and the Galleon, so we are going to need him to absorb at least one time out of the 3 on this Vigor in order for us to get a turn. As long as he absorbs one time, the Galleon and the Pungbake are pretty well speed-tuned. And it looks like he did not absorb any, so let's see if the Vigor does get up his crit resist. We're probably in a lot of trouble. So we did land the defense break. He did get the crit resist up. So there you go. If the Water Ryu was skilled up, I might have actually managed to get that one extra attack bar absorb I needed. But now we've got a 50-50 chance to get through this crit resist, so let's see what happens. We did get the crit. We did not do enough damage. Whoa, okay, we got the crit on the Vigor, but not on the Odin. So here's the beauty of it. The Water Ryu actually took no damage, got the Odin to dump his stacks. Unfortunately, the Odin procced and stole 2 stacks, and there goes my Galleon. 1 shot, that's brutal. So I think we're still dead here, yeah. There's nothing we can do. Okay, goodbye. Wow, go Odin, go. All right, can we get a sleep? No? Okay, goodbye, Pungbeck. I guess that is going to wrap up our demo of the Water Ryu in this Guild War. But guys, so to be honest, I don't really think there were going to be any other defenses that I could bring the Water Ryu into in this particular Guild War. And as I said, it's not so much that he can't be used, it's just the teams and speed tuning that I set up really weren't good for a G3 Guild War, but you did get a good demonstration of how he works in Arena. So on that note, and in summary, here's what I would say. Water Ryu is probably not going to be game-changing for you unless he happens to be your first AoE stripper. However, he is a really fun toy. He does work very nicely in certain types of cleave comps, especially if you don't have Chiwu. He is basically a water Chiwu, slightly different kits, but they serve the exact same role and function. So if you don't have Chiwu and you've got Water Ryu, congratulations guys, because he really does serve some use. I do think we'll see him a little bit in RTA next season. Basically, again, filling that role of Chiwu, but maybe working to provide people with a little bit more of an attribute opportunity. So for example, if somebody picks a Chiwu, I may bring in a lot of different water monsters so that the Chiwu's got a better chance to glance. And now you don't necessarily have that option. You know, you may, whereas... And a lot of times that counter is set up because the Chiwu is picked early. And sometimes the Chiwu is picked early simply because people are racing to pick it. So if you happen to have both of them, it gives you the ability to wait a little bit longer and then pick whichever one is going to be more appropriate for that fight. For example, Chiwu or Water Ryu. So he provides a little bit more flexibility for certain types of cleaves. And then again, in Arena, he's going to be... And then again, in Arena, he's also going to give you the opportunity to build some kind of unique cleaves. Another one that I didn't demonstrate because he's not runed, but Sige, this month's Hall of Heroes monster, would work really, really well in place of the Pungbeck that I used in Arena earlier. Basically, anything that's going to give you really large AoE damage is going to work nicely in place of that Pungbeck. And then the one that I mentioned, and I can't build it because I don't have I can't build it because I don't have Light Chun-Li, but the one where I think he's just going to be absolutely amazing is going to be the Water Ryu, the Light Chun-Li, the Fire Chun-Li, and the Galleon, if you're able to speed tune it properly, which the Galleon doesn't have to have crazy stats, and, you know, the Ryu and the Fire Chun-Li are both just going to be in Swift set, so it's really just if you can build a strong Light Chun-Li, I think that's going to be a crazy strong Arena offensive cleave. So, on that note, so I think overall, since I do plan on no. So I think overall, in the spirit of tier list, I would probably put Water Ryu in the B tier, possibly in the A tier. He falls right in there. Definitely a usable monster, definitely a fun monster, not necessarily game-changing, but certainly a monster that's worth building. But certainly a monster that's worth building. Now, the one last thing... Okay, we're going to restart that. So the last thing that I want to mention about Water Ryu, because I've compared him to Chiwu constantly throughout this video, but I think there is one thing that is really important to recognize, which is that Chi-Woo does not specifically need to be max skilled because the skill 3, which is really disproportionately powerful for Chi-Woo, it doesn't gain any kind of activation rate or harmful effect rate. The cool time really is nice, but ultimately, if you are still on the field after 4 turns when you're running a cleave, the odds are that you've lost anyway. Conversely, the Water Ryu genuinely does need to be Devilmond because of that harmful effect rate in his skill 2. Best case scenario, if you get really lucky, it could only take 3 Devils, although you might want to try and make sure you hit the Mind's Eye passive as well. So you're probably going to be investing at least 4 Devils into the Water Ryu, where you can get away with using Chi-Woo without Devils. Now, if you're bringing either of these monsters into RTA, they probably should be fully skilled, because every little bit of damage can make the difference between a win or a loss. But when we're talking about just using them in, and when we're talking about using them in Arena, it doesn't matter so much if you take a loss here or there, unless you're like making a push for a new rank during Rush Hour. But when you're talking about guild content, I do think that the skill ups on Water Ryu are going to be pretty important. But with that said, overall, in the spirit of tier lists, I would probably still put Water Ryu somewhere in between a B and an A tier monster, probably like higher in the B tier, which to me is a monster that's definitely usable, can definitely be a lot of fun. They're worth building and having in your box. They're just not necessarily going to move to the top of your list on every single fight. So on that note, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. As always, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time. Yeah, no, I am wearing pants because I'm streaming, bro. What are you saying there? All right, let me make sure that file actually recorded proper. Whoa, what happened there? Move back. Okay, there you go. No, that's only the first video, bro. The stream's not done yet. The stream's not done yet. I just want to make sure it recorded properly, and then we're going to move on to the next one. So yes, as you can see, the cooldown is actually 3, fun to play around with. And okay, so that recording is good. So I think the next one we're gonna do. Let's see here. You know what, guys? Yeah, Merrick, I do that a lot, and that's why actually sometimes you'll see like really bad audio edits in my videos, and it's because I repeated back to the last point that sounded good, but it actually wound up being like starting in something that was mid-sentence. So then I have to combine 2 sentences, and in the software that I use, it doesn't always, so like I use a software called Filmora to edit. I do need to switch to Premiere. I just haven't learned it yet. In Filmora, you can break it down frame by frame, 60 frames per second. In in Premiere, you can break it down frame by frame, like 60 FPS. In Premiere, you cannot do that. And so when I'm trying to separate words out of a sentence, sometimes I just can't get, I can't get it to the right frame. Like the software doesn't allow me to cut it from the right frame. Alright, I think we're going to do the Guild PvP tier list next, since we did that. Oh, I didn't even see that was offline. Okay. Yeah, I think we'll do the Guild PvP tier list next. So, can I open this? Come on, you can open. You can do it. There we go. Let's go start some farming. Yeah, something like that, Merrick. I mean, it's better than on a phone. The software itself is not terrible. It's good, actually. The software is pretty good, but it's not Premiere, you know. And it's honestly just been a matter of time, finding the time, like, to actually go out and learn Premiere. I just struggle to find the time on, you know, that's something that'll probably take me a couple of days of really messing around. So excuse me, so I just haven't done it yet, basically. Okay, so let's see here. We need to put this full screen. I wonder if I'm going to be able to port this in. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so we're going to put this here. So we can get away with that, right? That doesn't look too bad. Okay, and then we need to add in media source, or yeah, I think this one's going to go as a media source. No, it'll go as just a window capture. Okay, so we do add source and tier list, add source. Oh, that, no. Yeah, no, come on, turn off. Okay, this is overlapping a little bit. There we go. Okay, so we gotta remove that. So which source is it then? Oh, I see what I did wrong. Okay, add new source. So it's gonna be tier list. Where'd you go? Here we go. Tier list. Add source. Here we go. Photos done. So right now, guys, I'm from the stream that I did last night on the Guild PvP tier list. I'm going to do a video and just kind of summarize it and talk about it. And what I'm doing is cropping out the tier list to fit into OBS. And while there may be better ways to do it, oh crap. Okay, so that's not going to work at all, is it? Okay, yeah, that's not going to work. What if I zoom in here? Can I... okay, so we can do that. Come here. Okay, I think that'll work. So if you guys see, like when I have like new windows and stuff before stream, this is like the prep work that I do before streams, and obviously on videos as well. But when I set up for the stream, I set up the overall dashboard, and then did that change the size? Yeah, that does change it. Okay, so if I do that, that doesn't change it. So I set up the overall dashboard and display basically. Transform, edit transform. Okay, let's reset this. Now let's zoom in here. Okay, this is a little better. So now we're going to take this and we're going to move it to about here. And then we need to edit transform, and we're just going to clip off. It's just kind of like a manual guesswork now to clip off the edges. So about 20, no, more than that, like 70 on the top, a little bit more, 90. 90 cuts off their head, so about 80. 80 looks good. And about 20 on bottom, and a little bit more, about 40. Yeah, 40 looks good. Okay, so now we'll just stretch this out and fit it here. And does that look clean? Almost. I gotta bring it over just a little bit more to like here. Stretch this up maybe just a hair. I think that looks clean. Did I lose 3 S tier units? No. Is it not going to let me scroll? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I'll be able to scroll as we're going. Maybe I should zoom a little bit more. I think it'll be confusing. Yeah, it'll be confusing no matter what I do. One down. There we go. Okay. I don't know why the top tier is kind of broken. It has like this black space in here, but I can't fix it now. Whoops. That was like muscle memory right there. I heard it. Like I have the tablet down super low. It's at like 1 decibel, but I heard the dragon die right there. So I just, out of habit, I just clicked it. Because that's how I've trained myself all this time is to listen for the fight to end and then just start tapping the screen. Okay, so the next thing I need to do now is change my recording destination folder. So we go output recording. Are you kidding me? I can't change it while I'm streaming, I guess. All right, that's fine. Streaming, recording, standard. Okay, yeah, I guess I can't change it while I'm streaming, but that's fine. I can just record them all into one folder. It should be fine. Testing, video testing. Just make sure that did record. Yeah, you're right, Merrick. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's because there's no second row of monsters in there, so the text is bigger than the image. I should have just put in broken instead of broken monsters. There we go. See, I hear it. Like, legitimately, I wasn't even looking at the screen. I just heard it, and then I tapped the stupid screen. That's, I gotta, you know what, I better turn the volume off, because when I hear it, I'm gonna keep tapping it. Okay. Okay, so we got to move the tier list down a little bit over air server. There we go. We want the, okay, that's a cleaner image. I think this will work. All right. All right, I think we're all set for the next one. By the way, guys, I'm just throwing it out there. This is it's a private members only stream, so it's not like YouTube's going to promote it or anything. But I do find it kind of interesting that you're all channel members and half of you didn't hit the like button. Just saying, I think that's kind of funny. All right, let's go ahead and start the. Go ahead and start the stream. Are we ready? Yeah, we're ready. Six? It's showing me 6 viewers now. Are there more than six people in? Might just because it's the private stream. No, I see 6 people and... Oh, I see. 6 and 4. Okay, got it. It doesn't matter, Altair. Like I said, the like would only be to promote the stream, and obviously it's not going to promote, so it doesn't matter. It was just funny. By the way, hey Jim, hey Altair, hey Dakota. All right, so we are ready to start the next recording. So I'm gonna close chat, and then I'll catch back up to chat in between. If you guys are really lucky, you'll see a video that comes out terrible, because I'd say maybe 15-20% of the videos I record, I never wind up actually editing or posting because I'm just not happy with how they come out. And something is making me think that this might be one of those. Yeah, Merrick, it was just the irony. But yeah, we'll see, man. I don't know. I don't know if I have a clear vision yet of how I want to do this one, but we'll see. Something tells me this may be one of those that gets canned and that the only people who ever see it is you, but we'll see how it goes. So, all right. Hey, it is Zennial Gamer, and today we're going to be talking about a Guild content only tier list. Now, I actually did this tier list on stream, so if you guys want to see the entire breakdown of the tier list, I am going to put an info card on screen right now. But for this video, all we're really going to be doing is covering the highlights of kind of why each monster is in each tier. And then I want to remind you guys one more time, this is Guild content only. So I do plan on doing an RTA tier list probably in the next week or two. But for the time being, what we're looking at right now is just how good are these monsters in Guild. So, when we talk... Alright, this is distracting. Let me... Oh, no, I can't do that because... Obviously, then there's no point in having it on screen. Okay. So, let's come back here. Oh, good timing. I moved it out right on a fail. Haha! Congrats on the wound set, Alfred. I'll go ahead and sell that. Okay, so let's... hit replay here. Let's do this. So it's out of my line of sight. So I had I had the tablet in front of me, and then I've got another interface on the screen in front of me, and I could see the tablet going, like I could see the dragon fights in 2 places, and then I also saw the chat out of the corner of my eye, and it was like all distracting me, but... Yeah, I agree, Merrick. So we'll see how this one goes. Okay, we're gonna jump back into it. But for this video, we are talking about just specifically Guild content PvP. So a couple of things that come along with that. The first is that this list is skewed a little bit towards offensive use. Most of these monsters basically got their tier primarily for how good they are in offense. However, there are some monsters that are just amazing on defense, and they did get bonus points for that. Now, one example that is not on the tier list is Savannah. Now, the reason for that is because I didn't make this original template. I was just using the template that I was sent, and the Beast Riders were not in there. There were a couple of other monsters that were missing as well. But for what it's worth, if I had to put Savannah on this list, because we're talking about Guild content only, I would probably put her in the SS tier. The reason for that is because I think she's somewhere between a B or an A monster on offense, and I know a lot of people will disagree with that, but she is very RNG based. However, she is definitely in that top 4S broken monster tier when it comes to defense, so I would still have to push her up somewhere in the SS range. Now, so with the caveat that there are a few monsters that are missing simply because I didn't set up this template, this is the tier list that we worked out on stream. I think a lot of these monsters are going to kind of speak for themselves, so in this video I'm not going to break down every single monster. I want to talk more about the overall thought process that went behind it, and then maybe some monsters that people might agree or disagree with. Ultimately, you guys will probably disagree with all of them, and that's okay. It's really just a matter of opinion. But with that said, To start off with, I did do a 4S tier right here that I just called Broken Monster. These are monsters that basically, if you lose with this monster, it's either because your opponent just outclassed you in runes so much that it's unreal, or because you just brought it in at like a ridiculously bad time. Now, Ileana being in the Broken Monster tier, sitting there right next to Oberon and Gianna and Rahul. That doesn't quite make sense, right? Or more importantly, Ileana being in a Broken Monster tier higher than Leona, higher than Odin. Why is that? It's because you can bring Ileana in on 4-star bases, and because... Why is that? It's because you can bring Ileana in on 4-star bases, and you can put her on defense in 4-star bases. So that's going to be a theme through a lot of the top tiers. Monsters in Guild content PvP, and I know it's both Guild War and Siege, but if you can use them in a 4-star Siege base, and they're really, really strong there, then I did give them some extra credit for that. So in our top tier, you basically have Wunsa, who is, the premier stripper with incredible base speed. You can do a ridiculous amount of incredibly powerful offensive and defensive combinations with her. Rahul, one of the most powerful monsters on defense and kind of an auto-win on offense. Gianna, Oberon, both fit in that category. And then Clara, we see Clara in basically every single defense these days. Why? Because Clara has perfect AI. And that perfect AI on defense means quite a bit, especially when it's a monster with really good base speed that can be built to be extremely fast and then can just strip and stun your entire team. And in the higher... Now, Clara is actually in all metas of Siege and Guild War defenses right now, and there are some of these monsters that I gave a little bit of added credit to if they're effective throughout all tiers instead of just trying to focus on G2, G3. But I will say that you see Clara in practically every single G2 defense. Now, some of the G3 Siege defenses have moved on past Clara, but she's still pretty much in like every G2 Siege you'll see. Okay, for the triple S tier, these are monsters that are just flat out OP. Generally speaking, throughout this list, the other theme you'll notice is I highly value monsters that can set themselves up over monsters that require setup. And then I highly value monsters that are going to give you reliable, predictable, constantly doing the same thing, as opposed to monsters that are going to be heavily RNG based. But there are some exceptions. So for example, Nephthys. Nephthys does require setup. Nephthys needs a stripper. But Nephthys' skill is then irresistible once the strip has been applied. And technically you could put a Nephthys with, let's say, a Tiana, because Nephthys is already giving you that 24 speed lead. Wait, is Nephthys? Nephthys is common speed, not... I think Nephthys is common speed. Trems, what's up, bro? How you doing? Thank you, Merrick. I was actually just about to pull that up. I just had to make sure it wasn't Arena. I was pretty sure, but then, yeah. All right, thanks, Merrick. Oh, where was I? Okay. Because Nephthys is going to give you that 24 speed lead, you can use her with a Tiana and then some sort of nuke. So even though she requires setup, the setup is a little bit... So even though she requires setup, you can still put her in a very reliable comp. Now compare that to a monster in, like down in the S tier with the Shan. The Shan does an AoE stun. He's speed, right? He's speed. He speed buffs allies, if I remember correctly, right? Refill my energy. Thank you, guys. Yeah, it's speed. Okay, it's speed and attack bar boost. I knew I was forgetting something. It's the attack bar boost I was forgetting. Okay. Yeah. Lost battle. Okay. So compare that to the Shan down there in the S tier. Now, Shan is also an incredibly powerful monster. He's got an AoE stun, he's got an AoE attack bar boost, he gives a speed buff to allies, his Squall is going to hit really hard just like the other Chimeras. But Shan needs also that same strip setup in order to give an AoE stun, and he doesn't offer the same speed lead, so he gives you less flexibility in your comps. The stun is not irresistible, so he's not always going to be able to stun the enemies. Now, he will always, of course, attack, bar boost, and speed buff, but if that's all he does, then he didn't bring a lot to the fight. And of course, Shan can be manipulated by Joltan and by some other dark monsters. He has a lot more direct counters than Nephthys does. Now, Nephthys has one lockdown, rock-solid counter, which is Tetra. And you can use Tetra against Nephthys. Actually, she has two. Juno is also just a lockdown counter to Nephthys. As a matter of fact, Juno can solo Nephthys if you put her on defense sometimes. But other than those two, one being a premium Nat 5, and then the other being Tetra, who does have some vulnerabilities. For the most part, you're going to be using Tetra. You're going to be using Tetra? Yeah. Now this is going, so we'll do a reset. Now, Nephthys obviously has counters as well. Juno and Tetra are both lockdown counters, which is one reason that you don't see Nephthys on defenses quite as much. But there are ways around that. For example, if you put Nephthys with a Wind Nuker and you speed tune them properly, or you run her with like a Tiana AoE strip, again, that defense break is guaranteed, and then the Wind Nuker is going to target the Tetra and take the Tetra out. On the same turn... At the same time, when you're bringing Nephthys in on offense, you're almost never going to lose as long as you use her appropriately. So again, most of these monsters in triple S tier, it's because what they do is either irresistible or it's ultra consistent or they bring a lot more to the table. One exception up there as far as somebody who can be resisted, who isn't guaranteed to be ultra consistent, would be Mimir. Another would be the... Now, there are a couple of exceptions, specifically the two LD4s in this tier, the Mimir and the Martina. They do have to go through a lot more resistance checks, but they got boosted up because you can bring them into 4-star bases, and they're just so disproportionately powerful compared to their peers in the 4-star bases. And then Kamoon as well, although Kamoon is going to give you quite a bit of consistency with the passive and the shield. And then the big thing is you'll see Mimir and Kamoon are both your 24 speed leads in guild content, and they get extra credit for that as well. Now, when we get into the SS tier, this is where we get pretty much the rest of the really good LDs. So you're going to see Ragdoll and Jaeger. And this was on stream. A lot of people were like, what the heck? Why is Ragdoll in only double S tier? Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, Ragdoll's... Wow, this is losing a lot. Okay. Nice team, Ace. Let's change that up. So there's a couple of reasons for that. The first is simply that Ragdoll's nerf was legitimately a nerf. He's not as good as he used to be. He's still amazing. I mean, he's still SS tier, but he did drop down a step when they reduced the amount of attack bar boosting off his passive. Now, the other thing, and the much more important thing, is as I put these tiers together, what I was basically asking myself is, does this monster belong in the tier with these other monsters? So if I put a Ragdoll next to a Nephthys, and we're talking, again, just about guild content, which one do I think is going to give me the better chance to win? And the Nephthys is the one. The Nephthys is basically always going to win. Now, the Ragdoll is almost always going to win. I mean, the Ragdoll's still incredibly OP, which is what makes it double S, but it's just not quite in that same tier as like a Nephthys or a Hertite or an Artemil. So again, we have most of the rest of the The really premium LDs are going to be in this tier with the Volantis and the Pater, Cadiz, Tian Lang, and you could actually argue Tian Lang belongs in Triple S. He's kind of on the border. But probably the biggest, most controversial one here that I think most people will find is going to be that Shazam. I legit put Shazam in double S tier, guys. I really think he's that good. I think that his last buff was the tipping point, and I think a lot of people are still sleeping on him because he's got a bad reputation, but I'm telling you, AoE Provoke, AoE Glancing, and a 2-turn defense break on skill 1 is absolutely legit. I don't have Shazam, and maybe if I did, I'd have him down in F tier. I don't know, but when I've used him on other people's accounts, he's a ton of fun, and I think maybe that influences me a little bit as well. If a monster is super fun, then I'm going to use it more often, and sometimes you've got the same opportunity to win with, 2 or 3 monsters, and you're going to go to the one you enjoy the most. But I feel like he's a ton of fun, but I also feel like he's ultra powerful. Throw into all of that, he's got, the self-cleanse and the healing, and I legit think he's double S tier. Now, I think most of the other monsters in here are going to make sense. You may agree or disagree, but I don't think there will be a whole lot of questions as to why the monsters wound up here. Fen Yang, you could argue he should be in Triple S. I don't know if you'd argue for him to be any lower. But when you get down to the end of the list and you see the Collie and the Bulldozer, there might be some questions on those. And it goes back to that whole point of I really value consistency. I value monsters that are going to do exactly what I expect them to do every time. So if we want to take a look at a really good comparison here, where did I put him? Come on. Every time I let go of the mouse button, it snaps back. So as one example of what I'm talking about, you guys might notice that I've actually got Daphnis down in the A tier. And I think that's probably lower than almost anybody would put him. Now, A tier is legitimately really good. So if you look on the left side here, well, if you look under the letters, I've also put like what that letter means to me. So for the A tier, it's you win because of them usually, but they're not 100% reliable. So let's just... Shit. Now I'm going to give you guys a really good... Now as... Now how would I say this? Now, the few other monsters that might really surprise people in S tier are going to be down near the bottom, which would be the Tetra and maybe the Dozer and the Collie. And we're going to talk about why they're there in a moment. But before that, I've just got to back up a step. And I want to point out that if you see underneath the letters on each tier, I have what that letter rating means to me. So quad S is broken monster, triple S is just flat out OP. Double S is you win because of almost always. So for me, I break most monsters down into one of three groups. There are monsters that you win because of, there are monsters that you win with, and there are monsters that you win despite of. So a monster you win despite of would be like a Christina. If you give Christina G3 runes, you can make a winning comp. But if you gave those same G3 runes to any of 100 other monsters, you would win more easily and you'd be less nervous about it when you use them. So you can win with pretty much any monster in the game if you give them good enough runes and you build a good enough comp. But that doesn't mean you won because of that monster. It means you won because of your strategy and your runes. So that's a monster that you win despite. Now, a monster that you win with, a lot of them tend to be support types, or they tend to be monsters that are, for lack of a better term, universal. So what they do may be a little bit unique, but it's not ultra unique. They serve a role that can be served by any of a whole bunch of other monsters. They may serve that role slightly differently or better, but ultimately you could replace them with any of a bunch of other monsters and get about the same outcome. So that's a monster you win with. As a good example there, Chasun is an amazing healer. Fran is an amazing healer. Fran gives you immunity. Chasun gives you Fallen Blossoms. They're doing things differently, but they're serving the same role. Or maybe a more direct comparison would be Fran and Wusa. So Fran gives you attack buff with the immunity, and then she's got two different heals. The Wusa is going to give you a longer immunity plus a shield, but no attack buff. Ultimately, they serve similar roles. You bring them in when you need immunity. It's just slightly different if you're trying to nuke them out faster with a Fran, or you're trying to bruiser it a little bit longer with a Wusa, but it's the same role. So those are monsters that you win with. They're part of a broader team and they serve their role well. Then there are the monsters you win because of. The monsters that are just flat out OP. The monsters that you see soloing 1v3 in Siege or 2v3 in Siege. Those are your Fenyangs. Those are your Ragdolls. Those are your Neftis? Nefti? I don't know. Those are your Junos. Fuck. Those are your Leonas and your Hertites, monsters like that. So within those parameters, a monster that you win because of is usually one that you can rely upon. If you can't always rely on it, then yeah, sometimes you win because of it, but sometimes you also lose because of it. So the other universal truth is that 50% is a fantastic rate on defense, but anything under 100% is not a great rate on offense unless you're just like completely outclassed. Like if you're just moving into G3, obviously you're not expected to win 100% of the time, but generally speaking on offense, we need to win all the time or almost all the time. On defense, 50-50 rate is good. So that means RNG is great on defense, but it's a lot less valuable on offense. So this brings us back down to like the Dozer, the Kali, and to a lesser extent the Tetra. The Tetra is up there just because she's such an amazing counter to so many monsters that are above her on the list. Drop a Tetra in against Rika, against Belenus, against Neftis, against Asima, and I'm just like reading through the Quad S list right now, and that Tetra is pretty much going to lock down the team with any of those four monsters in there. In addition to that, she provides sustain and shield, and she's just an ultra powerful monster. Those of you guys who watched me on stream before, you know she's like one of my favorite monsters, so she was bound to be up there, right? Then throw in the fact that you can use her in a 4-star base. On the other hand, you've got your Dozer and your Kali. They're both just ignore defense monsters. They're monsters that can be ruined in a couple of different ways, but I mean, Dozer actually won the SWC a couple of years ago, guys. If you can win the SWC with a 3-star monster, he legit belongs to be up there. And even though this is a guild tier list, we do use Bulldozer all the freaking time because he's very reliable. I know exactly what my Dozer is going to do. He's going to hit for between 51,500 and 53,000 on win monsters. He's going to one-shot every win monster as long as I do my appropriate setup and bring him in at the right time. He's very reliable. Kali, I run 2 Kalis. I've got one that's super fast and hits for 38k, one that's super slow and hits for 50-something K. But I know exactly what they're going to do. They're very predictable when I bring them into any fight. Now, let's compare them to a monster like Daphnis. And yes, guys, I put Daphnis in A tier, sitting right there next to Brandia and Veramos. And the bigger surprise for some of you may be the fact that I put Veramos in A tier as well. I don't know. But yes, so there are a lot of people. I mean, Daphnis is in practically every RTA match. But again, this is guild content. Daphnis is a monster that people absolutely love. I do too. I think he's an amazing monster. I think he's a lot of fun. He's got an awesome animation. And when he works, it's just awesome to watch him delete an enemy monster, but he doesn't always work. For one thing, most of us, when we're building him, we can't get him to 85 accuracy and 85 crit rate and still give him enough damage to delete every monster that we want to use him against. So the sacrifice usually comes in accuracy or crit rate or both, and that means that there's a level of RNG that can occur even if the enemy is not max resistance. On top of that, you are going to face enemies where you don't know what the resistance levels is, On top of that, you are going to face enemies where you don't know what the resistance levels are. And lastly, even if you've got max accuracy and they have no resistance, you're still going to get resisted 15% of the time. So ultimately, Daphnis is a very heavy RNG monster. Now, if you use him against something like an Odin just because you know that you can outspeed the enemy, then when he gets resisted, he may still delete that Odin. But for the most part, if you try and use a Daphnis against anything that's a little bit thicker and you get resisted, it's going to result in a loss. And that brings us to the definition of A tier, which is win because of them usually, but not 100% reliable. Almost every monster in this tier is going to be a really strong monster, but has a level of RNG in them. When Oki's skill 2 gets resisted, we usually lose. When Volantis or Triton's strip get resisted, we usually lose. And then there are some monsters in here that they may be relatively reliable. We know what they're going to do. For example, Poseidon's never going to glance. But they're just, going back to, do they belong in the tier with the monsters above them, right? So if I compare Poseidon to like a Xingshi or even to a Rauk, who I just noticed Rauk actually is at a place because I tried to organize all these tiers by LD5, Nat5, LD4, 4-star, and it looks like the Rauk got stuck in front of Tessarian. But anyway, that notwithstanding, when I try to compare like a Poseidon to a Rauk, how devastating can a Rauk be as opposed to how devastating can a Poseidon be? You put a Rauk on defense and it can delete your entire team. You put a Poseidon on defense and it can just say hello to Lucian before you kill him. So there are some kind of variances here as far as in the A tier. Some monsters may be predictable, but they're just not predictably OP. And then some monsters may be OP, but they're not completely reliable. That's pretty much the makeup of your A tier. Thanks for stopping in, Killa, if you're still here. I'm just catching up on chat now. Ah, did it go again? Come on. Man, I really need to figure out something better than air server. Drives me crazy. Okay, so where did Chow land? Chow's A tier, right? No? S? Huh. Now I can't remember what... Because your Chow... Oh, there we go. Yeah. Ah, damn it. He's a tier. Ah, come on. Okay, yeah, Chow in A tier. Ultimately, I mean, honestly, there's always going to be a case to move a monster one tier or another. A lot of it, bro, is just opinion. I don't have Chow. Well, I have Chow. I don't have Chow skilled up, and I don't use him, so maybe I'd have a slightly different opinion if I did. Most of my experience with him is just fighting him, so I know what he brings to the table, and I know how I counter him. I think he's a really good monster, but I just feel like there are usually better options. So a lot of what it comes down to is when they're in A tier, it's just like, is there a better option for this situation? I mean, Chow does some really cool stuff, but compare Chow to Xingshi, compare Chow to Shihu, and tell me that he brings as much as they do. Obviously, Chow can kill Shihu because he can kill through invincibility, but that's a specific counter where Shihu is just kind of more all-purpose. Alfred, so for a bruiser monster, I mean, when you say recommend, if you're talking about like on my account, I usually shoot for about 180 to 200 on my bruisers. When I was in lower Guardian tier guilds, I shot for about 150. But I actually shoot for 100k on my damage dealers. So, you know, again, it's like not always necessarily the greatest comparison. I shoot for 80 to 100k. I shoot for 90 to 100k on my damage dealers. Okay. Now I forgot where I was. Where was I? I was talking about... Okay, no, that's right. I was looking at the bottom of A tier. Okay. So, Brandia... Chow. Got it. Okay. Now, a couple of other monsters that might raise eyebrows in the A tier. The biggest of these is going to be Geldnir, because he is a meme. But I'll tell you what, guys. I think Geldnir has always been underrated, undervalued. I really think Geldnir, at least, I mean, we're talking about guild content. We're not talking about PvP. Obviously, he's not a cleave monster, so a lot of people sleep on him because you can't cleave with him in arena. You can Lucian him on arena defense. He's not going to be the greatest monster in RTA, but I think he's a really good monster. And guys, think about what he does. He does a heavy-duty heal on his passive. Who else does that? Molly, who is all the rage right now. Now, obviously, Molly is doing an AoE heal where Geldnir is doing single target, and Molly's got the crit resist and a cleanse. So Molly is ultimately a little bit stronger than Geldnir, and Molly would be in triple S or quad S on this list if I had had the icon for her. But Geldner serves the role of a molly, and he serves it really well. Now, the problem with Geldner is he's an LD5, and for him to only do what he does is disappointing. So does he need a buff? Absolutely. His buff is really pretty straightforward as well. Instead of healing one monster, he should be healing all monsters, and instead of healing them for 35% of damage received, he should be healing them for 35% of his own health. That would make him super tanky, and that would allow him to do the heals that's necessary. With that said, even though he does need a buff for guild content PvP, he does belong in A tier. Now, Eludia, another monster that you could argue should actually be a little bit higher because it's got a massive... Another monster that you could argue should actually be higher because it's got AoE strip into defense break with a massive nuke, but Eludia is one of the hardest monsters to rune in the game because it's got an incredibly low base speed, but it's a cleave type monster. Unless you're running some sort of shield will cleave, but in a shield will cleave, there's other monsters that serve the same role better. Ultimately, I feel comfortable with Eludia in A tier, but there are people who may want to put Eludia in S or double S or lower. Remember, a lot of this comes down to opinion, and some of those opinions are going to be altered by whether or not you have a monster, whether or not you enjoy a monster, or if you've only fought it. So obviously, most of these LDs, I don't have any of them. I've only fought them, so my opinions are mostly formed by how much difficulty I have when I fight someone else using them, and then just by kind of knowing their kits and thinking about, man, I wish I had that monster, how would I use it if I did? I think probably another one that might be contested in the A tier would be Chow. Chow is actually a really good monster. He hasn't been buffed in a while, and he kind of fell out of meta, but what he does is still awesome. But for me, when I look at Chow and then I compare him to the tier above, and I ask myself, does he belong in a tier with Ciara? Ultimately, the answer to me is no. I think Ciara does more, and I think Ciara is better. So then the question is Ciara too low? But when I take... But when I take a look at Ciara and I compare her to the tier above and I ask myself, does Ciara belong in a tier with Isis or Tian Lang or Laura or Cadiz? The answer to me is no. And then it's the same question above, is Cadiz as good as Nephthys? Definitely not. So a lot of these monsters, like we think of a monster, immediately we say, oh, that monster's triple S. But the reality is that when we're ranking monsters, what we're doing is ranking them all in proportion to each other. So to me, when I look at the placement of these monsters, I do think that Nephthys belongs in flat-out OP triple S. I think that for guild content, Gianna is stronger than Nephthys. I think that Nephthys is stronger than Pater, Pater is stronger than Ciara, and Ciara is stronger than Chow. Ultimately, that's how I wound up with this tier list. So if you look at some of the other monsters in A tier, Kabila is another one that might stand out. She's got, 120 base speed, attack bar booster, but she becomes more of an endgame monster because you have to put her with some sort of other attack buffer or just have absolutely crazy runes to cleave with her, especially in guild content. And most people who have rune quality that deep are going to be in G3 where you really can't use those types of cleaves because the defenses are built so specifically to prevent themselves from being cleaved. And similar cases can be made for most of the other monsters in A tier. It's like they serve, as I said earlier, they serve a role, they serve it really well, but they are ultimately replaceable or situational. That would be another thing that I should mention, is that a lot of these monsters tend to be situational. Aegir was... Aegir was very meta for quite a while, but the meta kind of passed him by. He's still a really good monster. He's still very usable to counter certain types of teams, but as the meta has evolved, he just doesn't quite do enough to be used in all situations anymore. Now he's more of a situational counter. Lucian, strongest AoE attack in the game. Lucian is still Lucian. We all idolize Lucian, but the odds of you being able to... But the vast majority of guild defenses are built to prevent themselves from being Lucian because we're also aware of him. Now, maybe in some of the lowest tiers of guild... Now, maybe that doesn't necessarily hold true in all tiers of guild content, but by the time you reach anywhere into G1, which is like the top 2,000 guilds, there are going to be very few defenses, or at least we'll say like the top 1,500 ranks in guild in Siege. There are going to be very few defenses that you can Lucian. Now, as we move down into the B tier, this is the monsters that you can usually win with. Pontos and Acroma are the two. Now, as we move down into B tier, which is the tier that I've defined as those Now, as we move down into the B tier, which is the tier that I've called the monster. Take 17. Now, as we move down into the B tier, which are the monsters that you win with usually, you'll see the two LDs here are going to be Pontos and Acroma. And honestly, I'm kind of asking myself right now, maybe Acroma should have been A tier. The thing is, Acroma is so situational. So you're going to bring up Acroma in, obviously, whenever the enemy team is built around debuffs. Now, as we move into the B tier, which is monsters that you usually win with, you're going to see the two LD5s here. First of all, it's the Pontos and the Acroma. People who own Pontos are probably hating me right now. But honestly, I just feel like he doesn't do enough. You can win with him, and that's the definition of this tier. You win with him usually, but he doesn't do enough to justify taking a spot compared to all of the other options that we have above him. Now, Acroma is one, to be honest, I'm kind of questioning myself a little bit right now. I think maybe Acroma should have been an A tier. She's a very situational monster. You're going to bring her in to counter enemies that are heavily debuffed. And to me, you can also do that with immunity, which is why I think I initially put her in B tier. But to be fair, monsters like Nephthys or Ciara, Gianna as well, all of those are a little bit harder to counter with immunity. Nephthys just because she's usually going to be paired with strippers. Same thing with Ciara, and then Gianna because she is a stripper. So Acroma honestly maybe could have been up one more tier. But you could make the case, I think, for her in either A or B tier. Now, Josephine is a monster that's really strong in RTA. But in guild content, the primary and really the only role I've ever found for her is as a counter to Clara. And she's a little bit limited in that team because most Clara teams also involve a heavy nuke and then some sort of AoE defense break with attack buff. So for example, if you bring in Josephine against Galleon Clara Savannah, you can cut because the Josephine is going to take a turn when the Clara stuns you, but then you have to try and provoke the Savannah against attribute disadvantage, and if you fail to provoke, then the Savannah is going to nuke you out. Even if you land the provoke, half the time the Savannah is going to nuke you out. So very, very limited usage in guild content. Same thing for Hathor. You can build great teams that will work really well for you with AoE sleep. I've done it with a Shubal. Obviously, I don't have Hathor, but I've done it with a Shubal. But there's just better ways to win. Leo, very RNG based. He is amazing if the enemy doesn't have will runes, and your team is probably dead if you built it around the concept of going first and then the whole team does have will runes. So unless you've had a guildie already lose to that defense and inform you there's no will runes, it's scary for me to think of bringing him in most of the time. And we can make similar cases as we go down through most of these monsters. I think there are some people who may disagree by a tier, maybe even two, but for the most part, I don't think there's going to be anything too controversial in here. Debatably, maybe Teon and Konamiya. I think a lot of people use them very consistently, but my argument would be that there's two of them, and there's also a lot more than two of them. Imasetti does the same thing. There are a lot of single target max fill up attack bar boosters. Dova does the same thing. So I just think that they're relatively common, and these two have the lowest base speed out of any monsters in that class. And beyond having the lowest base speed, they tend to do less than most of the other monsters as well. Like Konamiya, he's amazing. He's got an AoE cleanse, but if you're bringing in Konamiya with Lucian and you need to cleanse your Lucian, it would be shocking to me, because if your Lucian gets hit, in order to be debuffed, your Lucian is probably dead already anyway. And Konamiya is not going to solo the team if you've already lost your Lucian. Okay, as we move into the C tier, this would basically be your list of LD5s that need buffs. I mean, pretty much with the exception of Wally Young, because Wally Young's buff did make her pretty decent in Arena. She's just not really very good anywhere else. I feel like she probably still needs a little bit more, but she's definitely in a class above. And then or whatever the hell you call him. He did get buffed recently, but I don't feel like the buff was quite enough. But Nyx and Kraka, I mean, they're just totally non-meta. You can, and again, this is the tier of you win with them sometimes. So you can build some really interesting, fun teams with Nyx. I think if I had Nyx, I'd actually have a lot of fun with him, because I'd screw around with like Rika, or, I mean, there's a lot of different teams you could have fun with, but none of them would be stable, reliable teams. Kind of the same thing with Kraka. Her gimmick skill, the cooldown is way too long on the Resurrect, and then she just doesn't do enough beyond the Resurrect. There's a couple of really powerful comps out there with Kraka when you're working with double Resurrectors, but they do tend to be very slow, so you can't really use them in Arena because they're too slow. You can't use them in RTA because they're too easy to break apart with pick and bans, and then you just can't really use them in guild content because they're not reliable. So even though the comps themselves are kind of cool, she just has nowhere that you can use her. Anyway, we can go through the whole list, but the bottom line here is these are the monsters, the LDs in particular, I think that need buffs the most right now, other than, in addition to Narsha, who is probably the worst LD5, and then Geldner also does need a buff. Now, the Samantha and the Vanessa, premium arena monsters, they serve a very limited counter role in RTA. They serve a very limited counter role, though, only in guild content, which is generally just they need to serve a role to act as a reviver. So, like, you can use a Samanth to counter Kamun Bastet Odin team, for example, where the Samanth takes the hit and resurrects. The problem with that is Odins tend to be built on Violent, and that second Odin hit will still delete your Samanth and then fully restack the Odin, so very situational. Same thing, you can use Vanessa to counter that team and allow Vanessa to resurrect the monster that takes the hit, but again, it's still a little bit of a risk when you're going in against a Violent Odin. And then other teams where you know you're going to get cleaved or nuked, those Resurrectors fit in there. Now, the Wind Ifrit, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. I think it's harder to pronounce his name than the Dark Sea King Emperor. But the Wind Ifrit, he does bring a universal speed lead. He's an AoE cleave monster. He requires a whole lot of setup. You've basically got to land an AoE strip and then land a whole bunch of debuffs, including a defense break, in order for him to do much for you. But you can win with him sometimes. If all the setup goes right, then you can definitely win with him. Alicia, kind of the same thing, a little bit less setup, but the same concept. A lot of the C tier for me, these are all monsters that will just nuke something out with setup. The monsters that don't qualify as nuke them out with setup, you would have a monster like Amarna, and probably this is going to be one of the most controversial things on this list. So I'm just going to make my case right now by saying that Amarna is amazing in that he does a little bit of everything, but he's problematic in that he doesn't do anything best. There's no one thing that he's the best at. None of his entire kit is mostly lower activation rate, so he's not a guaranteed defense break. He's a skill 1 defense breaker, but it's not guaranteed. He's not guaranteed heal block. He's not guaranteed brand. He can do an entire team resurrect, but it adds so much cooldown that once he resurrects your team, he will never be able to heal or cleanse in that fight again. And when he resurrects them, they're only at 30% health, so you're not going to be able to get them healthy enough to keep them in the fight. Ultimately, although he does a lot of stuff, it just doesn't all fit together. And then the other thing is his skill 3. Again, his skill 3 is basically the reason you use him, right? AoE, Resurrect, Cleanse, and Heal, which means you're going to build him as a support or a support-leaning bruiser, and then you're not getting to take advantage of the skill 2, which has one of the highest multipliers in the game. So the kit just overall doesn't fit well together. I'm going to make the exact same case, but be less long-winded about it with Escher. Escher basically can be a bruiser or an attack bar booster, but he can't really be both because you're either building him in Swift or you're building him in some sort of bruiser set, and the two just don't fit well together. Ramagos, for me, he's a little bit more of a gimmicky monster. There are some people who might put him in a higher tier, but again, he does what he does. He's the best at what he does, but I just feel like the role that he serves, there are other monsters that can serve that role better with less risk, because if he gets heal blocked, if he gets stunned or controlled in some other way, then the gimmick of the clean shot is ultimately going to backfire on you. I've tried bringing him in against an Odin before, and then the Odin just popped me for 50k and deleted me anyway, so yeah, I just think he carries a little too much risk with him. Then we get to the D tier, and these are mostly monsters that I just think are fun to use, but really don't have any value. They're monsters that require an incredible amount of setup, and then ultimately are very heavily RNG based. So Hrungnir, the Bounty Hunters, these are monsters that, you know, they can just go absolutely prop crazy. I mean, it's the YDCB special, right? They're monsters that can be a lot of fun when they work, but most of the time they're not going to work. Or you get to a monster like Bethany, who now with her recent buff, you could argue she should be a little bit higher, but in guild content, it's hard to give her all the setup she needs on a 3-monster team. I mean, she needs 5 debuffs on the enemy, so you have to get a strip plus 5 debuffs on the enemy to guarantee she's going to ignore defense, and then she's still only deleted 1 monster. So, although the buff is really nice for her in some possible PvE teams, it just doesn't quite fit for guild content. Then we get to the E tier, and these are the monsters that you can sometimes win despite. These are monsters you just have to give them, you just have to be dedicated. Like, you really, really, really want to use this monster. So you're going to give it your best runes, and you're going to spend hours theory crafting a comp, and then you're going to cross your fingers and hope it works. Just because you like the animation or something like that. And this is basically like Melissa's a pure PvE monster. Belita is a nowhere monster. I mean, Belita is just terrible. Shannon, actually, she does some kind of cool stuff, but, you know, ultimately, immunity matters so much more than defense buff does in PvP content. Defense buff matters a lot, but immunity is just so much more important. So one of the biggest things is when you're building a PvP comp, in guild content, you can only bring 3 monsters. It's hard to win with 2 supports and 1 damage dealer, because if you lose your damage dealer, you've already lost the fight. It's usually better to have at least 1 damage dealer plus 1 bruiser, if not 2 damage dealers. But But ultimately, Shannon is just a pure support that still requires another support to be with her. She doesn't offer the heal or the immunity that you need, which means that you're coming in with 2 supports and a damage dealer, so you're disadvantaging yourself right from the theory craft of the comp. And then we get down to the bottom tier, which is just, don't build it, it sucks. And again, we're only talking about for guild content, so you've got monsters in here like Faye. Faye makes no... I guess you could probably argue that Faye should be in the RNG tier. She could be in the D tier. But really, you shouldn't be using Faye in guild content. I mean, it's a 25% chance to ignore defense on a random target. It's just way too variable. You've also got monsters in here like Lynette, whose entire kit is built around PvE. So these are just the monsters. When it says don't build it, we're talking just about for guild content. So anyway, guys, I'm sure there are going to be quite a few controversial picks in here, because what tier list doesn't have controversial picks? But go ahead and tell me in the comments what parts you don't agree with, which monsters you think should be higher or lower. But as always, guys, I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Let me get caught up. What when the tier list window? I was like, why is that screen up now? Okay. So now we can remove this. Yeah, I actually, to be honest, guys, and you could tell me better right now. Anyway, you could probably tell me better than me, but I actually think that came out well. I mean, it was a 52-minute recording, so I'm gonna have to edit out a ton of that. I want to shoot that one down to my goal on that one is actually to be somewhere around 10 to 15 minutes. So there's going to be a lot to edit out on that. But I think that was good enough that it'll wind up turning into a video. Like I'm satisfied with how that one came out. And I wasn't sure I would be in the start. Okay, so next up we've got, I can do swap pro or I can do artifact cleanup. Or I could do Iris's OP and TOA. Yeah, and Sadai's a lot. I think I covered a lot of that in I covered a lot of that in the stream, and that's kind of one reason why I want this to be a shorter video, because I will put an info card to the stream. So if somebody wanted to see the whole thing, then they could always, reference back to the stream. Jim says artifact cleanup. So I've done 2 artifact videos and both of them bombed. But okay, I think we'll do the artifact cleanup one, and then I will figure out if it's worth editing this one down or not. All right, so let's get this stretched back out. Oh, we have a closing date for Season 10, guys. Let's see. Whoa. Holy crap. It's closing like in a few days then. Oh, man. Do I sit or do I not? Oh. I'm probably high enough to take the cutoff for G1 right now. Oh, I already fell into G1. I wonder if 1839 will make the cutoff or not. I mean, do I push for G2 or do I take the G1? Because I've never had a G1 finish. Ah, man. I don't know now. I don't know. I want the red star, but I want the 2 red stars. I think I should take the G1. I think that would be the smarter thing. Okay. Yeah, easy to say push when it's not your account, sir. All it takes is a few Ganny Hathors and I'm right back to C3. I'm right around where last season's cutoff was. I'm right around where the cutoff for G1 will probably wind up if we've got about a week left. So I'll have to do at least one more fight, otherwise I'll have attrition. Or maybe not. If it's the 26th, then the season's probably gonna end sooner, but I'll figure that out. I'm not gonna do it today either way. Alright, so here we go. Hey Shackers, what's up, puppy? Come here, baby girl. Hey. Hey, puppy. How you doing? Right at the cutoff for non-combatants. Huh? All right, Shacky, come on. You've got your audience. You've got your fans, Shacky. Come on. Come on. Go to bed. Go to bed. And she touches the bed and then gets right out. Shakila, go to bed. Go lay down. Down. Yep. Good girl. Good girl. Aw. I didn't mean to make you stand up, puppy. Okay, go to bed. Go to bed. Down. Yep. Did you even chew that one, dog? Chew your food. 32 times. Good girl. Wave. Shakila, wave. Can you? Can you wave? No? Okay, down. Down, down. It's okay. Okay, puppy. That's it. No more. Lay down. Lay down. Down. Good girl. Exactly, sir. Exactly. All right. I can't really start recording this one while the puppy cam's on. I don't want to turn the puppy cam off because she's being good. All right, we'll do one RTA while the puppy cam's on. And then we'll start the next recording. Or maybe we won't do one. Ah, there we go. Okay. Anything but a Ganny Hathor, please. No Ganny Hathor. Let's get that push. All right. This is interesting. This is interesting. It's a weird cleave draft. Yeah, Odin. He he's going to ban that. Okay, so definitely these two. I think he's going to beat me. He confused me with the Daphnis pick, and I didn't go full anti-cleave. Yeah. Well, he's not in a full cleave. This is a weird team. Unfortunately, Merrick, I would say start 2Aing Rauk. It's a shame to have wasted the 65%, but the Rauk is just too important. Proc, please proc. Alright, I lost. Yep. I should have killed the Daphnis. That was a misplay. That was a silly gamble. That was a bad play on my part. It's wireless, Merrick. I haven't been able to find a cabled one. That's what I really need, is a cabled one. It's a weird team. Let's do this. Yeah, I knew he was going to do the segment. I'm going to do this. Oh, man. He's like drafting my own team in reverse. I've got nothing to counter it. Wow. Is that? No, that's not necessary. That's unnecessary. It's the segment. So we can strip kill the Rika. Yeah. Not on this PC. I've tried, but this PC can't support the input. $140% is an awesome rate. kidding me? Yeah. Ah, lands 2 clutch sleeps. Can't believe he landed 2 sleeps with a Harmonia. Yeah, people dropping off. Of course. Wow. No, Jim, they just said it would be death themed. I think this is the last one, Alfred, because it's going really badly for me. I don't know why he never sniped out my Veligil. He had plenty of chances. But yeah, okay, we're done with that. I mean, I don't know that I have a really strong opinion either way. Grim Reapers would probably be nice. I feel like they could be some really interesting two ways. Raw food, no, Alfred. I give they get prescription food, and then I cook some chicken and rice for them on occasion, and they get a lot of treats. All right, here we go with the next one. So I'm going to be minimizing chat, guys, and we're going to start on the artifact cleanup. What? Oh, that's right. They boosted those to 1,000. I forgot. Okay. Okay. She should be a support, right? Yeah. Hey, it is Xzandro Gamer, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about artifacts. Now, I've done a couple of previous videos outlining what the different artifact subproperties do. What today we're going to be talking about is a more practical approach, basically artifact cleanup. So I did a bunch of farming today, and rather than selling the artifacts as I was completing each dungeon run, I just saved up a bunch of them, and what we're going to do in this video is just go through the artifacts. Some of them will be obvious sells because I kept everything, and then some of them will be a little bit more borderline, and some of them might require a little bit of rolling, but we're going to look at each artifact and then try to decide whether or not it makes sense to keep it, in the context of having been able to farm artifacts now for about a month or two, but we'll also talk about whether or not those artifacts make sense for different stages of the game, or if you're just starting to artifact farm, things like that. So we're going to start off, we're in the artifact manager. For those of you who don't know, when you go into the manager, you actually can only look at the artifacts that would work on the monster that you were highlighted on when you went into the manager. So you'll see right now, we're on Bastet, which is going to be water, and it's going to be support. And so most of my farming today was in PC10, so we've got a whole bunch of supports and just a few waters. So we're going to start right down here at the bottom, and we're going to go through... So we're going to start right down here at the bottom, and we're just going to look at each one. Okay, so to start off with... that one. New capture? Yeah. Excuse me. Okay, so to start off with, we're going to load up Swore Farm, which I talked about this in a previous artifact video, and I'm going to link that video in an info card on the screen. But if you didn't watch it yet, Swore Farm is basically a giant database of all of the Summoner's War monsters. So if you're not sure which monsters an artifact would fit on, this is what I do. I go over to Swore Farm, and I basically just put in, so we're going to take a look at this first artifact. It's a support artifact which has recovery on skill 3. So we're going to come over here, we're going to look up support monsters. We are going to hit awakened just because if you don't, it just shows you both versions of the same monster, so it's easier to scan through if you go awakened. And then we're going to go over here to other effects, and we're just going to scroll down to heal, and we're going to hit apply. Now, it doesn't tell you directly which monsters have heal on which skills, but if you know the monsters pretty well, then you'll be able to figure it out fairly quickly. If you don't know the monsters, then you can also just highlight, you just hover your mouse cursor right over the skill, and it shows you what it does. So in this case, there are, and this is pretty obvious, the support monsters are going to have the most healing skills, and so you're going to find the most skill 3 heals on support monsters. Whereas, like, I was kind of surprised to find there's only like 2 or 3 HP monsters that actually have skill 3 recovery. Most HP monsters have their recovery on skill 2. Now, the other thing that you can do is actually come up here. Excuse me. Now, the other thing you can do is actually come up here and just click on My Profile, and then you come over here to Monsters. What? Now, the other thing you can do is... Now, the other thing you can do is actually come up here to My Profile, and then you just click on Monsters. Unfortunately, for some strange reason, I had to re-import my my JSON onto Swarfarm. I'm not sure why, but it takes quite a while to do that. So for the recording of this video, I'm not going to be able to demo it on my monsters, but I just wanted you guys to know that the option was there. And then when your monsters are uploaded into Swarfarm, you can actually do your filtered search just through your own monsters instead of having to look at every monster in the game. The other nice thing is, I think, although I'm not positive, now the other option, or the other thing you can do is also, assuming you use the optimizer, just load the optimizer up, and that way you'll be able to take a look at your monsters in the optimizer. So depending on how big your monster box is, it may be hard to remember which monsters have artifacts and which don't. So for example, when we come over here to Bestiary, and I look at this support artifact, which we're actually going to start enchanting because obviously if it boosts up, which we're actually going to start enchanting because obviously if it landed on recovery, which it didn't, it landed on HP when revived, so now it's pretty much garbage. But had it landed on skill 3 recovery, it would have been a nice artifact. Actually, we'll go ahead and just see if it max rolls. But so let's say it gave me a really big recovery, then for me, the monster that immediately jumped out to me was a Marna. Now for me, one monster that immediately jumped out to me was Amarna, but I honestly can't remember if he has an artifact or not, or what kind of artifact he has on him. So it looks like the Swore Farm window is blocking the enchant window a little bit. Yeah. So I've gone ahead and resized the pop-up of Swore Farm a little bit just so it's not blocking the enchant window. Anyway, so had this artifact hit recovery, it would have actually been quite a useful artifact. Since it didn't, now it's just a sell. But I did want to point out that one of the other things that you might want to do in preparation is also have your optimizer open, assuming you use the optimizer. I'm actually going to throw another info card on screen for the Optimizer Pro as well, video on the Optimizer Pro. Anyway, if you have the optimizer installed, you might want to open the optimizer up so that you can check which artifacts your monsters have. So for example, one monster that stood out to me over here was Amarna. I cannot remember if he has artifacts. If he did have if he did not have artifacts, or if he didn't have recovery on skill 3 on his artifact, then this could have been an upgrade for him. Obviously had it enchanted better. But because artifacts, you know, there's so many, we have so many monsters and there's so many different artifacts, it gets a little bit complicated. It is nice to have places to cross-reference. Now, the other thing I could do is obviously just come up here to view equipped artifacts and then sort by skill 3 recovery. That would have been a whole lot smarter. But I'm not used to having the artifact manager yet. So as it happens, we see Amarna right there, and he does indeed have skill 3 recovery. Not the greatest overall artifact, as a matter of fact, for him. So, yeah, we could have upgraded the artifact for it. Now, Now, obviously, another way you could do it is directly through the Artifact Manager. So you just come up here and you go to View Equipped Artifacts. And then you can just come in here to Subproperty, and we could actually search by Skill 3 Recovery and see that Amarna does indeed have the Skill 3 Recovery artifact, and then I could just look at what he has and compare. Where it gets tricky is if there is no artifact on him, or let's just say he has an artifact that didn't have Skill 3 Recovery, then you wind up having to sort through the entire list and look for the little icon, and that's where the optimizer can be a little bit useful. Also, the optimizer does have a little bit of an efficiency formula in it. Okay, so moving on to the next one. This one is just automatically garbage. Now, the main reason this is garbage, there's actually several reasons this one's garbage. So it's, I mean, like most people probably see it's garbage right off the bat, but I think it's worth pointing out all the ways in which it's bad, because sometimes it may not be this transparent. So a support artifact, when it has... So for starters, we're going to value support artifacts more usually when they have HP or defense. Now, that's not universal. There are a few support monsters that are going to be built in... There are a few support monsters that are going to benefit from attack, but as a general rule, we're going to prefer HP primarily, then defense secondarily, and attack last. Now, the crit damage received is actually not bad on this. If it double rolled into the crit damage received, so I take it back. Here I am saying it's garbage, and then as I analyze it, I realize it's not complete garbage, because if it did double roll into crit damage received, I would find somewhere to use it. But the life drain one, I generally don't value all that much. And I've got to be honest, I also can't remember the range on crit damage received. I feel like it's a 2 to 4 range, which means that we just double min rolled. And then the life drain is actually a max roll, but it just doesn't really have any value on support monsters, because in order to benefit from life drain, you have to do damage. Otherwise, you're just... and there we go. We hit the life drain as well. So I'm pretty sure this was 2 to 4. Oh, wow. You can't actually check it in this screen. We have to back all the way out to over here. And then we can scroll down here. Didn't move up to the... There it is. Oh, it's actually 1 to 3 on the crit damage received. So it's not a double min roll, it's a double mid roll, but the life drain really has no value, the attack has no value, and at this point I've farmed enough artifacts that I'm no longer just grabbing every artifact I can. I'm starting to get a little bit pickier. It's just kind of like when you start the game. You know, initially you're taking whatever runes you can get, and then you slowly start to get a little bit pickier. So I'm not looking for like the craziest, most OP artifacts yet, but before I invest that much mana, I actually do want to be able to see an appreciable upgrade on a monster that I use. So my system right now is when I get an artifact that can upgrade a monster I use, I put that artifact on the monster, and then I take that old artifact, which is usually enchanted to plus 12 or 15, and I move it on to another monster, even if it's not the greatest fit. So rather than me stat chasing with crappy artifacts, I figure I've already made 50 plus crappy artifacts. I'll just keep cycling those crappy artifacts down onto monsters that I use less and less. Okay, so next up we have another support artifact, and we did just look it up and we realized this is a max roll crit damage received. So if we could get to like -9 crit damage received, it's probably worthwhile using. And we actually did double max roll, so this one could be an artifact that we pursue. Now, once again, the flat attack is not ideal for support, and speed under inability is something I'm not a real big fan of, but we can, if the next two sub-properties roll well, we can still also convert speed under inability off. So for me, this is definitely worth taking to at least +9, and I'll probably wind up taking it to +12 as well. So let's go ahead and see what it hits at +9. So there we go. Now it's got recovery and crit damage received. And the thing with artifacts is it's really hard to get 4 sub-properties that synergize well. But this is actually, despite having started off as a rare artifact, this is actually fairly well synergized. Even if I had to keep speed under inability, it's not the worst thing in the world. And having basically almost double max rolled the crit damage reduction and then a mid roll on the recovery percentage, it's actually a pretty solid overall artifact. There's a lot of good places that I could find to use this thing. So we are going to roll it out to +12 and see how it finishes. And while we spend the next half hour waiting for it to hit +12, I do want to point out one monster that this would be really good on would be Fran, who does benefit from the flat attack, simply because her heal scales to attack. And there are a few other monsters, support type monsters, whose heals also scale to attack. So again, it's not that we don't ever want attack on a support type monster, it's just that it tends to be a little less valuable than HP or defense. Okay guys, I think I'm going to go to sleep. I'll be back in 8 hours when this thing hits +12. Well, hey, there we go. Okay, and we wrapped up with skill 1 accuracy, which honestly, if we're thinking about this as a Fran artifact, skill 1 accuracy is not bad. Now, it's a min roll, but it's really not bad. So the next step for me, since I do have Fran very strongly in mind, is to go take a look at what we're using on our Fran. Now, I actually do have 3 Frans built. I didn't see them in the artifact manager, so we just jumped out here. You can see the first one has 16% recovery, attack crit, increasing effect. This one is overall, this is a really good Fran artifact, and it's the support, you know, and again, the flat attack works for Fran. So we're going to go take a look now at our second Fran. This one has got like the worst artifact I've ever freaking seen. Okay, this is an artifact I don't even feel like it's worth moving down onto another monster. I think we would just sell this one outright. This was probably one... So this Fran, actually, you can see the violent fight. It's also super slow. This was a Fran that I built for Steel Fortress, and the only reason I'm going into this detail right now is to point out that I just took like the first artifact that I got that was a support artifact and put it on Fran so I could get the extra 58 defense, and probably figured like the 3 crit damage received would benefit me as well. And honestly, it's worth doing that, guys. It's an extra 58 defense for free. And then we look at our third Fran. We see she's got no artifacts at all. So yeah, slam dunk. That artifact is a keeper, and what that tells me, now the reason that we went through that process and figured out who it's going on is because that tells me what I then want to convert. So now we come back to our artifact and we just check. First of all, we check to see if we have any special conversions. We're going to convert the speed under an ability because Fran gets immunity anyway. And we see that we've got nothing worth using, so we're going to go ahead and just do a normal conversion, and we'll move on to the next artifact. Really? Max roll crit damage. Thank you very much. And actually, this is going to be an incredibly well synergized rune for Fran. We've got skill 2 recovery, skill 3 recovery, crit damage reduction, and accuracy. It's a beautiful Fran artifact. Okay, so now we move on to the next one, and here we've got a skill 3 crit damage. Okay, so now we move on to the next one, and here we've got skill 3 crit damage and damage dealt by attacking together, and honestly, I think both of these are pretty useless for almost all supports, but we are going to take a quick look and just see if we see any support monsters that even attack with a skill 3. For the most part, most of them don't. These are going to be majority heals. In the case of Elucia, it's sleep, but there's still no damage actually done. Felleria is a pass, or no, Felleria is Felleria is a passive. Freya, Harmonia, Herney. I mean, as we come down, you guys will see there's really just about no supports, if any at all, that are going to do any kind of attack. I think Mi Yang does. Nope, that's her heal also. The attack's on skill 2. Yeah. Platy does. Platy has an attack on skill 3. But still, I mean, Platy's not going to be built to do damage, and that's going to be the truth of basically all of these monsters. Yun Hung is like the only one on this list that's really going to be built to do damage, Yun Hung and Mi Yang, and neither of them do any damage on skill 3. So no matter what rolled on this artifact, it wouldn't benefit me. And on top of that, it's flat attack, so this is kind of an easy sell. Now we move to the next one, and here we've got the additional damage by 4% of attack. Again, it's not going to have much value for us on a support artifact. So if this double rolls recovery, it's a keeper for me. But as soon as it rolls the additional damage the first time, it becomes a sell because it just doesn't have enough value for me. Okay, now we've got additional damage and crit damage received, so this is the same thing. If it double rolls crit damage received, then I will take it on to +9, but if it hits that additional damage by HP, then it's going to be a sell. So there we go. As soon as it hit, we go ahead and sell it, And we move on to the next one. Now we're getting into the HP flats, which these I tend to value more. But we just established that crit damage skill 3 on a support makes no sense, so we're going to go ahead and sell that one off. Crit damage skill 1 and damage by speed also really don't make a lot of sense to me. Again, these are support monsters. They generally don't do a lot of damage. Same thing for accuracy. For the most part on my supports, all I'm really looking for is recovery. So life drain, damage dealt by attacking together, there's no value there. Now here we go, accuracy and recovery, and it's a max roll accuracy, which is really nice. A max roll recovery, which is really nice. The accuracy on a skill 2 support, we might find somewhere to use it, especially because it's flat defense, but it's the recovery that we really want. And we did just pop the first recovery, so if it double rolls recovery, we're taking it straight to plus 12. Okay, so we did double roll recovery. They were low rolls, but we'll still probably find somewhere to use this. So we are going to go ahead and take this one out to plus 9 and see what happens. But before I take it further, I want to go through. As you can see, I've got a lot of support artifacts here. So I want to see if I get any other support artifacts that wind up rolling better on skill 2 recovery, because ultimately you can only use so many artifacts. I mean, if I've got 300 6-star monsters, then probably only 50 of them are support monsters, and maybe only half of those have a heal on skill 2, and maybe only half of those wouldn't benefit from something else. So at the end of the day, you have to remember that each type of artifact is just, there's a finite number of uses for them. Okay, so in this case, attack increasing effect and damage, it's a pure damage artifact, so again, it doesn't benefit us on a support. This one is a min roll, and we just rolled that. This one is a min roll recovery, so I feel like it almost has to max roll on the plus 3 for me to want to take it on further. And this is just partly because I've already got a bunch of skill 2 recovery artifacts that are at 12, 13 or higher. Now, the 10% accuracy, there could be some use in that. Now, the 10% accuracy, there could be some use in that, so I'm going to go ahead and come back over here to Swar Farm and take a look at who needs accuracy on skill 2. Now, Amarna pops out right away. He would benefit from it, but he's... But for the Amarna, I really feel like a skill 3 recovery is much more important than a skill 2 accuracy, so this artifact doesn't fit Amarna that well, and as we looked up earlier, he does already have a skill 3 recovery. I obviously don't have Artemil, I don't have Ariel. I will probably never build Atenai unless it gets buffed. And as we scroll down the list, I'm not seeing any monsters here that I would actually want to use accuracy on. Even if they do have a skill 2, almost all of these monsters I'm going to prefer recovery. And so that's what you're going to find a lot with support, is that even if one stat buff does fit a monster, it may not be your primary preference. The one, as I'm looking down, here we go. Here is one that would genuinely benefit from it, which is Veramos. Veramos really could use skill 2 accuracy. However, I'd rather have crit damage on Veramos. And so that's what it comes down to, is there's definitely a place to use accuracy artifacts, but most of the time you're going to want the accuracy to be like a secondary and not a primary roll on that artifact. So I'd rather my Veramos have like 12, 18 crit damage, and then also have, a single roll or conversion 6-9 accuracy, but I don't want accuracy to be the only thing on that artifact. So since this artifact doesn't fit any of my monsters, we're going to get rid of it. Now, speed plus proportional to lost HP, I'm just not a fan. It only works on your base it only works on your base speed, and then ultimately, we're talking about a 4% speed boost at a point when I'm almost dead anyway. I feel like it's too unreliable, and I'm not benefiting from it the majority of the time. When my monster's at max health, I don't get any benefit from it. Whereas, again, crit damage, recovery, those things I benefit from whenever I use the skill. Okay, so skill 2, actually we just said that we'd rather have a crit damage skill 2 on the Veramos. Now the additional damage by attack, not a great fit. So what we're going to do is see if we can double roll it. Ideally with the Veramos, we would actually get a skill 3 recovery mixed with a skill 2 crit damage because of the passive on Veramos, the passive healing. Since we didn't get that combination, we went ahead and sold it. Now, crushing hit damage, I feel like this is probably the single worst of all the sub-properties. And again, I'm not a fan of speed to lost HP, so that one's a sell. Crit damage received is a min roll here, so because it's such a low roll, we're just going to dump it. This is also a min roll skill 2 recovery, so we're going to dump that one. Bomb damage on the support, and it's a min roll, so this is also a dump. Now, it did have the defense increasing effect, which would be nice, but again, because it lacked that primary attribute, it was a sell for me. So here's the big key, guys. Basically, when you're rolling for your artifacts, again, you can't get all 4 sub-properties to line up perfectly. Very, very rarely. So what you want to do is look for the single most important sub-property for you, roll that one heavily, and then shoot for getting at least a second, because you can keep converting until you get that second sub-property that works. But in a perfect world, maybe you get 3. And the more sub-properties you have that synergize, the better. But at a minimum, you find that one sub-property that really matters to you, and then you just make sure it double or triple rolls, and then you get a second sub-property on, whether it started with it or you convert it on. So here we go. Skill 1 crit damage makes no sense on a support artifact, so it's a sell. Attack bar when revived, we're not a fan, so we're going to skip that. Now, crit damage received, especially when we're getting into the hero runes, this is a max roll. Crit damage received. So HP when revived, that's almost as bad as crushing hit damage to me. Maybe actually as bad as crushing hit damage. But the crit damage received, so of course it lands on that. The crit damage received is actually really useful, and then it does work well with the skill 2 accuracy. So the goal here would have been to convert the HP when revived into some sort of recovery. But since we didn't hit crit damage received on either of those rolls, I'm not going to bother taking it to +9. Had we hit it at least once, I would have taken it to +9. Now, here we go. Skill 3 recovery. This is the big boy. Obviously, damage dealt by reflect damage. First of all, that's a min roll. Second, the only support that reflects damage, I believe, is Ragdoll. So I'm pretty sure Ragdoll's a support, which is weird. But yeah, so the hit right there into damage dealt by reflect, also not going to benefit us much. And the double roll, I'm not going to hold on to a bunch of low rolls just on the off chance I get a Ragdoll, so it becomes a sell. Now here we go, max roll, skill 2 recovery. So again, we're just rolling for the recovery. And we hit the life drain. So once again, now this is another one, like if this had reflect damage, because Ragdoll's often built on Vampire, there's another one that could go on Ragdoll. But the double roll into life drain, as I mentioned earlier, with supports, the monster has to do damage to really be able to get much benefit from draining life. So that one overall, not a very good one. Now, since this is a min roll on the skill 3 recovery, we're only taking this one to +3. We just want to see it now. Since it did hit the skill 3 recovery, now we're committed to take it to +9. Had it not hit recovery, I would have made that decision. I probably would have gone to 6 either way, honestly. But they're low rolls, and the bomb damage really just doesn't make a lot of sense here with the skill 3 recovery. So about the only, as a matter of fact, this overall artifact doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're going to go ahead and just sell this one because it's also flat attack. And it can only hit 13% even if it goes perfect. So we're going to get rid of that one. Now, as we move on to the next one, once again, we've got another skill 3 recovery. We're going to jump past this. Okay, so you guys get the idea with support. Now, support tends to actually be the easiest artifact just because you're really only looking for that skill 3 recovery. HP monsters do have maybe the widest range of HP monsters. So, for example, Orochi is an HP monster, but you're going to put him in an offensive build. Raitesh is an HP monster, but he's a bruiser. Vigor is also a bruiser, but they have different... Ritesh and Vigor are bruiser types, both with heals, so they're going to benefit from recovery, but they also have defense breaks, so they benefit from accuracy, and they're bruisers, so they benefit from crit damage, so there's a lot of different kinds of artifacts that can go on them. The one thing they have in common is they want that flat HP. Then you've got a monster like Chiwu. Chiwu is also HP type, but is often built in an attack build, and is usually going to be built in Swift. So it's a wide variety of different HP type monsters, which means there's a lot more artifacts that you can find use for. Because you can find use for so many artifacts, what I've been doing with these is, first and foremost, I am trying to find the ones that have flat HP, because with most HP monsters I use, it's going to be either flat HP or attack that's going to benefit the monster most. There are almost no flat HP monsters that do anything defense scaling. But there are a lot of HP monsters that benefit from attack. So again, Orochi is a key example there. And then, of course, your Skoguls, your Riteshs, all your bruisers, they really, really want to have that flat HP. So in this case, we've got flat defense. We do have skill 2 recovery, but I'll show you that I've got quite a few of these already with skill 2 recovery, so it's not necessarily my first choice. Now, by the way, this is another little trick that you can use as you're doing your rune cleanup, or your artifact cleanup. So let's just say that you farmed artifacts all day like I did and you didn't sort through them. So we could come here through our HP artifacts, look at all the skill 2 recoveries, then we go over here to Swar Farm, and we switch this up from support to HP type, and we look at monsters only that are awakened with heal, and we figure out how many monsters we have that actually have a skill 2 heal. So we've got, let's say, Vigor. We've got all of the Beast Monks. And then Basalt, and that's it, I believe. Yeah, oh, and Wusa. So we've got Vigor, the Beast Monks, Basalt, and Wusa. So that's a total, assuming you don't have the LDs, that's a total of basically 5 monsters if you have all the Beast Monks and Wusa. So if you have 4 premium Nat 5s, and then the Basalt, and I think Rashid also, yeah, Rashid also has it, but who's built Rashid? So there's like 6 HP type monsters in the game that have skill 2 recovery. So now it's a question of, we're going to go ahead and view equipped runes, and we can see I already have one on my Wusa. It's a very low one. It could be upgraded. But we can see that we don't need that many where the primary stat that we're looking for is skill 2 recovery. So this is a way that we could actually quickly sort through. We come here to skill 2 recovery. And then we look at each of these and we just say, okay, this one is a low roll, so we can get rid of it because we're not excited for it. This is HP with HP, so we're actually going to roll that one out. This is HP with defense. Since we've already got others to roll out, we could sell it, or since it's a higher roll on the recovery, we could take it to +3. This is a max roll with HP, so this is so far the best one. Even though it's rare, this is actually the best one. And then this is a max roll with defense, but because it's hero, we're going to roll it out, because if it landed 18% recovery or 24% recovery, that would be amazing. Now, when we come over to the HP type monsters, you'll find that there's actually only one in the game that has a heal on its skill 3. So if we come over here to skill 3 recovery, there's actually only one that we really need to look at. And this is flat defense. We're not going to roll it for skill 2 accuracy. So even though it's max roll skill 3 recovery, I don't have anything to use it on. And so since I don't have anything to use it on, I'm going to go ahead and sell it. So that is another way that you can kind of thin the ranks of your artifacts. Life drain affects only when you actually drain life. So if it's on vampire, then it benefits you. If it's so if it's a vampire skill or if it's a vampire set, it benefits you. But again, all vampire, whether it's skill or set, it just recovers 35% of the damage dealt. So if you don't deal any damage, then, you know, if you do 1,000 damage, then you're getting back 350 HP. And if you give yourself an extra 4% of that, you've legitimately just used 2 rolls on your artifact to get back 70 HP. It's just not enough, basically. Okay. Now we've switched over to attack artifacts, and I'll give you another way that you can kind of thin the ranks a little bit. Virtually every attack artifact you're going to prefer to have. Virtually every attack artifact you're going to prefer to have defense. And what that means is basically your standards for the attack flat are going to be lower. Did I say defense? I said defense. Virtually every... fuck. Oh, man. Okay, so now we've changed over to attack type artifacts, and there's another trick you can use to thin the ranks on this one, which is that almost every attack type monster you're going to strongly prefer to have a flat attack as your primary stat. Now there are exceptions. Obviously, if it's got defense and it rolls a bunch of crit damage, then you'll find a way to use it. But if it's got flat defense and it rolls 6 crit damage, then the 100 flat attack that you've just given up is probably more valuable than that 6 crit damage. So when I come to my type artifacts, my standards, and again, you'll see, so when I come to my type artifacts, and you can see we've got the Water Ryu, he is an attack type, so we're looking at just attack type artifacts right now. When I come to my type artifacts, I can go first to defense, and I can look at this and I can say, okay, skill 1 crit damage, not that exciting. I mean, yes, it could roll out to plus 17 crit damage, which would be amazing for my Odin, until we remember that 100 attack is worth about 10 crit damage. So a plus 17 crit damage skill 1 on this is basically a 7 crit damage on an attack flat. Now, obviously, there are lots of attack type monsters that will benefit from having HP or defense. It's part of your overall effective HP. But just from the concept of the fact that, especially if you're farming a bunch of artifacts, you're going to have to make tough choices because we use fewer artifacts than runes and we have a lower limit in our inventory. I'd rather just hold out, and my Odin already has an artifact with some crit damage on skill 1, so I can hold out now until I just get an amazing fit. That artifact wasn't going to upgrade him. Okay, this artifact is just straight up garbage. This artifact is mostly garbage. Now, additional damage by attack actually can be useful, but once again, because we're on defense type, it's just not giving me enough. Same thing here, that's not giving me enough. The accuracy is never going to be my preference. Now, the bomb damage here would actually be really nice on a Ciara, obviously, or, you know, an attack type bomber, but it's a min-roll bomb damage on a rare artifact, so the most it can get to is plus 7, and then once again, we're giving up that flat attack, so we're not going to bother to roll for it. Same thing here, the bomb damage again would be nice. Now, in this case, I could actually roll it to 11, but I do believe I already have a plus 8 on my Ciara, which is really the only bomber I care about. And I think Cien also has a plus 7. So then I have to ask myself, is giving up 100 flat attack worth it for just a few bomb damage? And ultimately, I think maybe my monsters would hit, I don't know the math behind it, but I think maybe my monsters would hit a tiny bit harder. Let's say I triple max roll this bomb damage. Maybe my bombs will do an extra few hundred damage. But is it worth at that point the investment of another 1,000,000 mana to plus 15 this artifact, or even just a few 100,000 to plus 12 it, in order to get a few hundred damage when I know that the very first attack type artifact with a flat attack and bomb damage I get, I'm going to change it onto my bomber because this artifact's just not good enough. So kind of the point here is I already have an artifact that's doing almost this good, so this artifact can't become a big enough upgrade to make it worth me investing mana into it. The potential, the ceiling for this artifact is higher than the artifacts I have now, but it's not high enough to justify the investment because no matter how well this artifact rolls, I'm always going to be looking for a better one. So that makes it a sell to me, so we can go ahead and sell that off. And then we look at this one, and this one's just straight up garbage. Crit rate increasing effect, it's the least used buff, and it's like on every freaking artifact I have. So we go ahead and get rid of that one. Then we come over here to HP, and it's kind of the same process. Now we do value HP slightly more than defense, that's why I'm doing it second. But we really don't value attack bar when revived almost at all. The only monster I have that really benefits from it is Beelzebub, but the reality is that unless you basically max roll attack bar when revived on a legend, it's almost never going to have any impact. If the enemy was going to cut you with 100% attack bar, the enemy will almost always be cutting you with 105 or 110%. You really need like at least 15-20% attack bar for that to be impactful. Of all the artifact sub-properties, that's the one I hope the most that they buff because it's just way too underpowered and it is potentially useful. Stuff like crushing hit damage, I could care less if they buff because it's really not potentially useful. It's just not. But something like attack bar when revived would be really nice if they just buff the roll range to be like 3 to 6 or something like that. Okay, so very few attack type monsters are going to do any form of heal. And so while you can get the benefit of additional damage from the HP there, it just wasn't worth keeping. Now the attack increasing effect, this one is actually one that I value very highly. But again, it's just that same thing of like, let's say this is a perfect roll. Is it worth switching over to an HP, especially because it's rare? Had that artifact been hero, I might have rolled out to see if I could triple roll on the attack increasing effect. But since it was rare, I felt it was a sell. Now again, as we're going through, it's really the same logic with each of these that I'm selling. They just don't have the potential to grow into an upgrade for me. This is an artifact that can literally only be used on like 5 monsters in the game because it's double min roll plus skill 4 crit damage. So it's an easy sell. Now here we go. This one actually does have the attack increasing effect. So we are going to roll this one out. Now about the only way I keep this is if I max roll attack increasing effect on the first roll, because it's really going to have to hit like 10-12% in order to be worth not having flat attack on it. So we'll go ahead and sell that one off. And then this one actually, legend with a skill 3 crit damage. This one's potentially exciting. I'm going to be very sad when it quad rolls into HP when revived. But skill 3 crit damage, if we were to triple roll into that, it is totally worth giving up that flat attack. So there we go. Skill 3 recovery, just what every attack type monster wants on a flat HP. My money is on this one is going to go into HP when revived, and then we can probably just sell it. Attack plus proportional. Yeah, this one just becomes a sell, unfortunately. I know it could still roll into 18 crit damage, but again, it's a flat HP. So keep in mind, let's say I actually did roll it into 18 crit damage. Giving up that 100 attack is the same thing as giving up about 10 crit damage. At that point, it's like basically having plus 8 crit damage on a skill 3 with everything else on this artifact being worthless. So it's worse than a rare artifact, even from the best scenario where it could roll from right now. And then this one, once again, is just kind of garbage. So this allowed us to very quickly thin down the number of artifacts we needed to look at. And now we're down to just the ones that are going to be usable on most attack type monsters, which means our standards are now much lower. Because our attack types are going to benefit from this flat attack, we'll take almost anything usable. This, unfortunately, would not be usable on anything except a samurai. This would not be usable on anything, period. No, just to be fair though, guys, one point I really should make when you're watching this video, if you're not doing heavy artifact farming, then your standards should be way, way lower than what I'm showing you right now. And I think I need to put a text over. Reminder to self, go back to the start of the video and put a text disclaimer. So one thing that I want to really emphasize right here again, and I put up a text box at the start of the video, but just in case you skipped over that, hopefully you're still watching. I'm farming artifacts a lot, which allows me to have higher standards. If you're in early game, early mid, or probably mid-mid, like if you're not heavily artifact farming, then your standards are going to be much lower because there's a tremendous amount of value simply in the flat stats. So looking at this artifact we've got right now, attack type artifact with attack plus, it's got double heal on it. This really has no value to me because I'm artifact farming a lot. But if your Bale is hitting for 31k damage, you don't have to hold out for the attack type artifact that gives you skill 3 crit damage. That extra 100 attack might be enough to move you into BJR5. So it could really be as simple as you just needing to benefit from the flat stats. And so your standards for the artifacts that you're keeping, you're going to want to base those on how much you're farming and also on the quality of artifacts that you already have. If you're just starting out farming, your artifacts are mostly garbage, then you're going to take whatever artifacts you can get that are going to give you a kind of upgrade so that you can farm faster, and you're going to put those artifacts on your dungeon teams. But once your dungeon teams have all their artifacts, then you're going to start to hold out for higher standards for your PvP teams. Okay, this is freaking beautiful. We love this. This is jackpot gold. We're putting this thing straight to 15. And we're going to put this video on pause because we're actually going to roll this all the way out to 15. Merrick, that's actually not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that Life Drain doesn't have a lot of value on support type, but if you put Life Drain on my Leica, for example, I do use Life Drain on Leica and I use Life Drain on Miho. But there's, because those are monsters that hit very hard and have lower HP, so the HP that they gain back proportionately is significant. I have Life Drain on, okay, sorry, bro. Oh man, 16. This is actually an Odin artifact. This is the artifact I've been waiting for on my Odin. I just need to gem. It sucks I have to gem off the skill 3 crit damage, but this will be sexy for Odin. This will be really sexy for Odin. All right, guys. So it looks like most of you have actually stuck it out with me for several hours now. So what do you think? Is this like a good stream? Is this a good benefit of membership? Should I not do this again? Should I do this again? Like, give me some feedback. Oh, if it was double into skill 3, it'd be really good for a lot of monsters. You can use it on Lucian, you can use it on, you can use it on basically every attack type monster with a skill 3. The skill 1, this is really good for Raux. As a matter of fact, yeah, this would be great. This would be an upgrade for any of my dungeon Raux as well because of the skill 1 on team up. All right, cool. Yeah, this I could try doing this on an open stream, but it's just, there's so much chat and I don't like being the guy who ignores chat. So okay, nice, Altair. That's okay, that's good to know, guys. So I will do these on occasion then. There was actually, honestly, there was a lot of prep that went into this. I don't normally have the ability to record 3 or 4 videos in one day. I have to do like my research and prep in advance. But it's good to know, even if it's just like a day where I usually just do 1 video at a time, but even if it's a day where I'm doing like 2 videos, or if it's going to be like a long guide video. So, for example, like the progression guide video, there was probably 5 hours of prep that went into that, and then about 3 hours, maybe 4 hours of actual recording that went into that. But that's just because it's such a big topic, and you're trying to cover it in such a short amount of time to, to fit into the length of a YouTube video. Basically, the more complicated a topic that when you try and put these complicated topics into like 20-minute videos, it's really challenging. So I think there's value in watching the final edited video, but the concern for me, honestly, is that this on an open stream could wind up with like it's a lot of the analytics stuff. First of all, if it's the first time somebody ever caught my stream, they would think I was just ignoring everybody. But besides that, there's a lot of analytics stuff, like if it got a lot of thumbs downs or if people were bouncing in and out for like 30 seconds at a time, that does help. That does hurt you in the YouTube algorithm. Oh, shit. I thought I converted the wrong one for a second. I almost had a heart attack there. Now it kind of looks like a crow one, but that's not bad. Ooh, man, if that was skill 1 accuracy, that would have been gold. Okay, now that is nice. That is nice. I've got one more like this. The other one I have is a little better than this one, but this is almost as good as the other one. It no longer works for Odin though. Now there's too much wasted. This has got to go on. I don't know who this will go on. I still like it for my Raux, even though the crit damage even though the skill 3 crit damage is wasted. I like it for the Raux. This could also go. Excuse me. This could also go on Sue. So when you convert, does it play by the same rules of roll investment? No, I know you can go over the roll range, but I don't know what determines that. I've actually wondered that myself, but I haven't taken the time to look into it. So for Crow, you really want big skill 3 crit damage. This is going to be best to go with a monster that's doing team up. This could work really well with like a Sabrina or a Shayna, because like with Talia, you still want that big skill 3 crit damage. But the Sabrinas and the Shaynas, they do a lot of team up damage on their skill 1s, and their skill 1s actually hit harder than their skill 2s. So, of course, both of them don't have a skill 3 either, but yeah, I mean, this, honestly, it works in a lot of places. It's flat attack with triple crit damage. It works everywhere. So, okay, we're going to go back to the video, and I'll be back to chat in a bit. Okay, guys, so this thing rolled beautifully, and then we went ahead and we actually converted out. So we got the attack plus to lost HP, which that's just a really small thing, but it does synergize well. It would have been much nicer if it was attack increasing effect or something, but still, I mean, it's attack plus. It's an attack artifact with flat attack, with triple crit damage and attack plus. I mean, it's gorgeous. So, and this was, I believe this started off as a rare artifact, so I think this is a tremendous way to point out that, guys, when you ask, do I have to farm PC10? No, you don't. This was a rare artifact, and this instantly just moved into like one of the 5 best attack type artifacts I have, depending on, like, if the skill 1 and skill 3 were reversed, it might be the 2nd best artifact I had, but it's still one of the 5 best, starting off as rare. So just goes to show you guys, you do not have to farm PC10 or SF10. You can farm 7, 8, 9. You can farm the lower levels, whatever level you have that's reasonably stable, and you're getting tremendous value out of these artifacts. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next one now. This one is basically, now, one thing to point out here, the additional damage by percent of HP, that is great for multi-hitters, but the other 2 sub-properties really just don't synergize. If you don't have a lot of artifacts yet, this is one that would actually be worth rolling out. But for me personally, most of my attack type monsters don't have that much HP, and if it hit either of the other 2 sub-properties, it just wouldn't have much value. So for me personally, this one is a sell, but for a lot of people, if you're starting off artifact farming, that would be a keep. Now, for attack type artifacts, I just really don't value skill 3 accuracy that much. I do value skill 1 accuracy, just so you know, because skill 1 defense breaks really can help you quite a bit in dungeons, but skill 3 accuracy, you don't value from that, you don't get value from that in team ups, so I don't value the skill 3 accuracy. The skill 1 recovery. So here's one that I can't remember what monster type Shaman is. I think he's actually HP or defense, but I cannot remember. Well, he's not HP because he's not showing up there. So let's go ahead and we're just going to clear those out. And we're going to look up Shaman over here on Swore Farm. And he is defense type. So because he's defense type, there's not as much value. So the skill 1 recovery on Shaman, because he heals off his skill 1, this could have been a really good dungeon monster for me. A really good dungeon artifact for me, because you get damage dealt by attacking together, you get skill 1 recovery, and you get crit damage reduction. So this would actually be perfect for Shaman if it wasn't for the fact that he can't use it. So we're going to come back over here to Swore Farm. I'm pretty sure there's no attack types that have a heal on skill 1. I mean, very few attack types actually heal at all, but we're going to go ahead and put in attack type. We're going to delete out monster name so we don't get no results. We go ahead and hit apply. And yeah, we've got basically it's just a few self-healers plus Wahi. The Iris's heal comes off the passive, I believe. Yes, so the Iris would not benefit from it. The Mal would not benefit from it. The Tian Kin would not. He's got heals on 2 and 3, but not on 1. So yeah, there you go. There's no attack types that have a heal on skill 1, so there's no real value in this artifact unless we just wanted to roll out for crit damage received. But once again, when we're looking at attack type artifacts, we're talking about nukers. So the crit damage received, generally not as much value. Now the one thing we could do here is we could try and roll out for damage dealt by attacking together to try and use it on like our dungeon crows or brauks. Or twins all really benefit from that. But even if it had max rolled, again, this is kind of like adjusting for me. I've already got artifacts on most of them that are at least 5 to 6% damage dealt by attacking together, but have other sub-properties that work better, like crit damage. So for me, this artifact wasn't likely to be much of an upgrade, but for somebody who doesn't have a good artifact for their twins or their rauks, this could still be worth rolling out because it's attack type with flat attack. And then once again, this is just another one that really doesn't synergize well, so we can sell that one off. And then our last one here is one that I had already partially rolled, and I am thinking it double min rolled into damage dealt by counterattack, so I probably just wanted to think about it further. And as I look at it, yeah, I mean, this is kind of limited, so we're going to come back over to Swore Farm, just double check who might actually give us counterattack. There's really not very many attack types that do. So the Fae, the Leica actually, the Leica does not benefit from the skill 3 crit damage. I prefer life drain on Leica, so it's not a real good fit. It's not a fit for Liebly. It's not really a fit for either of the Ninetails Foxes. Those aren't Ninetails Foxes. Those are Kung Fu Girls. It's not a fit for either of the Kung Fu Girls. Don't have Mi Ying, so yeah, this just really isn't going to fit for anybody. Best case scenario, I could roll this out and maybe get 12 crit damage on the skill 3, but I can do better than that off a rare artifact, so we're going to go ahead and sell this one. Let's see here. No. Do. And then the last thing we're going to talk about just briefly is the attribute artifacts. Now with the attributes, there's a much wider range of what you could look for in terms of the flat stat. For example, Amelia is going to benefit most from HP. Water Chun-Li is going to benefit most from attack, where Sabrina or Talia are going to benefit most from attack. If you've got a defense scaling bruiser, they're going to benefit most from defense. So basically the main property stat, you can't really slim things down quite as much that way, but there is a trick where you can start to slim down but there is one trick you can use to start to thin the herd out a little bit, which is, right now we're on Amelia, right? So Amelia is water type. So what I look for now is damage received from fire, because fire monsters are not attacking Amelia. Because fire monsters are generally not going to be attacking Amelia anywhere except maybe an RTA, and even then they're always going to be against attribute disadvantage. So what I would do is go through my artifacts, and as I mentioned at the start of the video, most of my farming today was done on PC 10, so I had a lot more of the types than the attributes. But if I did have like 4 or 5 artifacts in here that all had damage received from fire, I might be able to sell those a little bit more quickly if the other stats didn't look to have any upside. Now, I would say, generally speaking, I roll out a lot more attribute artifacts than anything else. Or I should say, than anything else. A lot more attribute artifacts than type artifacts, because the type artifacts are a lot easier to like pigeonhole. Like, we know that we want flat attack on an attack type. We know that we want crit damage or attack increasing effect on an attack type. But on the attributes, there's a much wider range of things that we're looking for. With that said, what I value the most is damage received, damage reduction from your weak attribute. So in this case, what I would value the most is damage received from wind, or conversely, damage dealt on fire. Those are the 2 things I'm looking most for, because that's what's special to the attribute artifact. And then from there, I'm just looking to see how the rest of the subproperties synergize, and then I make use of Swore Farm to look at my monsters and see if it makes sense for any of my monsters. Should I continue to roll it? Like I said, I do tend to spend a lot more time with the attribute artifacts, and since this is already a long video, maybe we'll do that on another video. And since this is already a long video, maybe that would be better fodder for a different video as for how you go through that process. But ultimately, honestly, it's the same process. It's just a longer one, but it's the same things we talked about in today's video. So guys, tell me if you'd want to see another video based on attribute artifact cleanup. Let me know in the comments to make sure it's worthwhile to... Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that type of video. And on that note, we're going to wrap this video up. So as always, I appreciate you watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. And I'll see you next time. Have a good night, Altair. Have a good night, bro. Thanks for hanging out. Merrick, it just apply all artifacts only apply to the monster they're on, but when you attack together, both monsters benefit from that. So let's say that you have Sabrina and Talia attacking together. It doesn't matter who's attacking and who's going along with. If Sabrina has the damage dealt by attacking together attribute on her artifacts, Sabrina will get that damage boost. And if Talia does not have it, Talia will not get it, no matter whose attack it was initially. Alright, so artifact cleanup is done. Man, I still had like... Oh, and Guild PvP tier list is done. I wanted to do a Swap Pro tutorial also, but I can definitely tell my energy levels are low, so I don't want, that's going to be a really long recording. So I think I'm going to try to do a TOA one. We'll see. I might abort this one in the middle because I haven't done as much prep work for this one as I would like. And I am a little bit tired. I'm going to start the TOA one, and if I'm not happy with how it's going, then I'm going to abort it. If I am happy with it, then I'll finish it out. That's a good point, Merrick. Yeah, because it lags my stream, right? But you know what? It would be fine because it would lag for you guys, but it wouldn't lag for me. And all that really matters. Oh, no, you know what? I can't do Swap Pro on this PC at all. I just remembered that. Well, I can. I just have to keep the search depth low. It's really just a tutorial on how to use it. The results that it brings back don't matter. Yeah, it'd be fine, but... Do I want to do the TOA one? Maybe I don't think I want to do the TOA one yet. I feel like I need to put together an outline for that one, or I'm going to wind up meandering. I know what I want to do, but I need to do my homework on it. Yeah, I don't think we're ready for the TOA one. I don't think I'm ready for that one yet. Okay, is there anything else I can do that would be relatively short? Did I do all my Guild Wars? I did not. I left flags. Okay. Which one did I lose to? See, this is the cost of doing videos. I'm gonna drop down to second in contribution now. You didn't even get to see me lose that, or well, you saw. I think you did see the loss, but you didn't even see that whole video. All right. I think we can use that one up there. Ladriel, Orion, Ciara. So we can definitely use this here. Ladriel, Orion, Masha, not Ciara. How to not buy pointless packs? I don't know if I'm the best person to No, actually, one of these days I do need to do a pack video. I've talked about it on stream, but I don't think I ever did a video on packs. Yeah, I can't even trick the code and summon a Nat 5 with a Transcendent Scroll, to be honest. Yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap up. Let's turn on puppy cam because I think Shaki just made her bed. Yeah, there we go. We'll turn on puppy cam. I think I'm done with the recording. I also already had I had one other video recorded as well, so this gives me quite a bit of editing work to do. And I don't think my energy level would be high enough if I did another one. Oh, bro, I actually kind of believe you with your luck. You really might have gotten a 4-star from a trans scroll. Ooh, that's gold. You know what? Let's just do it. Whoa! That was not gold. That was not good at all. An air server crashed. Okay, we're going to lose this fight. Holy crap, that Eladriel took it like a champ. That's a trap team. Alright, bub, you gotta get back. Whoa, okay, enough procking. Enough procking. Leave my bub alone. Leave my bub alone. Yeah, that's not good. Oh, and she cut. Yeah, I'm going to lose this. Wow, that's a lot of procs. So the Eladriel was a trap. It had 60k HP, and I didn't do enough damage to it. I misplayed it, honestly. It was a legit loss. It was a bad comp I brought in also. I'm tired, so I tried to cheese it, and I shouldn't have. Alright, for this one, we'll actually do a comp that has some thought put into it. Let's just go with the Wusa. Huh. Wow. I'm going to lose this. The Mina procced right out of immunity. It's not. It wasn't the elemental advantage. It was the lack of immunity. Well, and his procs didn't really help me there. I wouldn't like that, honestly. I mean, I'm the one who brought in 3 water units against the Fen Yang. If I lose, I deserve it. This Fen Yang is definitely on violent, I will say that. Man. Every time I can't get the immunity to stay up. Sleep. That wasn't bad. Heal block. Nope. Sleep. GG. Oh, pulled it off. I did not know if I was going to hold on to that one or not. Can I buy anything from the guild shop? 709. Got those. Nope. Got those. Yeah, I'll just save for an entrance effect. Okay. All right, let's do a couple of wind scrolls just for fun. And then probably call it a night from there. All right, give me that Fen Yang one time. One time. Yeah, I didn't think so. I did not think so. A good number of summons is 50. I'm sorry, a good number of summons is 200. I'll do 50. But if you really want like an enjoyable session, I mean, you know, to be good for stream, you need to get something, and 200 is the rate, right? So you're supposed to get 1 Nat 5 and 200 scrolls, so that's like kind of the ideal target. All right. I think I am going to call it a night. You can see Shaky already called it a night. So good feedback, guys. I will do this on occasion then, I think. Excuse me. Probably won't be a weekly thing because I have to plan for it a little bit, but maybe I'll try and do it like once every month or two and, you know, have a few videos wrapped up all in one. Dude, bro. You know what? If that's the complaint that you're making, I will totally be happy with that. I'd love to do a birthday session for you. I'm going to be like, fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed that we can nail it. Appreciate that, Jim. Have a good night, bro. And yeah, I'll try and do this. Like I said, I'll try and do this probably once or twice a month. Excuse me, once every month or two. I'd be pretty happy, man. I'd be pretty happy if that worked out. All right, I love this auto farm thing, man. I'm just setting up auto farm when I go to bed now. Oh, I should do world boss, and then I'll set up auto farm, and that'll be perfect. It'll actually just drain out all my energy. The other cool thing, guys, I don't know if you noticed. Well, it's because I don't sleep much, but my energy is not full when I log on in the morning anymore, so I don't feel like I'm wasting anything. All right, anyway, I am off, guys. Have a good night. And I'm probably going to be doing a normal stream. Am I doing a normal stream tomorrow? I'm not sure. I might do. I might stream tomorrow. I might stream Friday because I need to edit some of these videos and get them posted as well. I will not get... If I get you a Hathor, I'm going to unsummon her. But if I get you a Fen Yang, I'll be dancing in the streets. All right, bro. Have a good night, man. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you on the next stream.